About to begin this meeting. This is the Planning Land Use Management Committee. I'm Councilmember Jose Huizar. We will be joined shortly by Councilmember Gilbert Cedillo. And I'd like to start the meeting by calling item number 10 to order, and that is, if you can read that into the record, please.
Sure. That's the weekly report from the Director of Planning, Mr. LeGrand.
Good afternoon, council members. Mike LeGrand for the record. I have a brief update for you. The planning department's been diligently working on the mobility element, which is an element of the general plan, as well as the new zoning code, updating our 1946 zoning code. We're having a number of 7 public outreach workshops all across the city. If I could direct people to our webpage under www.lacity.org/PLN for planning. It'll direct you to the various workshops from everywhere from the Valley to South Los Angeles and to West LA. We'll be having 7 public workshops highlighting these 3 work programs where people can give us their feedback, get involved. It's still very early in the process, and all those plan initiatives for the new zoning code for Los Angeles, as well as for our mobility element. And it'll give people a chance to understand what we're doing, get some valuable feedback as we start to move those forward through the various outreach processes we're working on. So we're very happy to have those workshops all throughout the city and look forward to great attendance, hopefully. Some other items, we have a Planning Commission tomorrow. We'll be taking up a number of items, and we'll be in the Valley for anyone who has cases there. And then I'll be here for your meeting today to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. And I believe the mobility element component will be up in this committee next week as an update. And,
yes.
Get an update on that and some other items that will be discussed. Thank you very much for the report. And at this time, we will have, till we get a quorum, why don't we go to item number 5 and begin that project, please?
Sure. Item 5 is an appeal by Janice Lazaroff. It's appealing the action of the West LA APC, which denied a height variance for the construction of a single-family dwelling in CD5. This is before the committee as also a 245 motion that the council adopted.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, council member. For the record, my name is Jim Tokunaga. I was the zoning administrator on this case. The item before you is an appeal of the zoning administrator's approval of a height variance of 50 feet for a single-family dwelling. The height is limited to 36 feet at this particular site, and the zoning administrator approved a height of 50 feet. One of the reasons for approving the height variance, in my opinion, was that the way that height is measured, it goes out 5 feet from the exterior walls, and in this particular site there is a creek that runs through the site. When you measure out the 5 feet, it goes into the creek, and therefore there's a discrepancy of 16 feet in height between the developable area of the site and where the height is measured. Additionally, the creek has to be preserved as part of the parcel map approval, and therefore, in preserving the creek, it actually takes away about 35% of the site as developable area. Only 18% of the height of the 50 feet is 50 feet. The rest of the project complies with the height requirement. Additionally, I felt that the site had some unique circumstances in that, one, not only is there a creek that runs through the site, but because the site has such a long street frontage, they're also required to have a 25-foot front yard. The site itself is relatively flat. It does slope as it moves eastward. But collectively, with all the different things that are going on the site, the preservation of the creek, the slopes, the long street frontage, I felt that there were some circumstances that warranted the variance. The approval of the variance was appealed by an aggrieved party, an abutting property owner. It did go before the West LA Area Planning Commission on January 15th. The West LA Area Planning Commission, after hearing testimony and additional evidence presented by the appellants, disagreed with the zoning administrator and overturned the decision. They found that the zoning administrator had erred and abused his discretion in approving the variance, and that approving the variance itself would have a detrimental effect on the general plan, specifically the Bel Air Beverly Crest community plan, that the project was not in characteristics with the community, and that the additional height would in itself create a precedent for other projects to come through with the height variance. And so here we stand right now with my approval.
Great, thank you very much. And before we go on, I am going to hold off on this meeting and wait until our quorum is reached, because I wanted to proceed with the items on our agenda, but we cannot unless and until we get quorum. This is just for the record, only the facts of the case were presented here and the procedural history of this case, and until our additional member of this committee shows up, then we will continue with the meeting. So why don't we take a quick break? Thank you. And for those of you who would like to have a seat, we are opening an overflow room in the main council chambers here on the third floor. It is down the hall. The main council chambers just across the lobby here. And we will have a television monitor available there for you to view what is occurring in... Do we have a TV monitor or just hearing? Audio? I think it's just audio, if anybody wishes to go to that room. But with that, Mr. Cedillo, we have covered so far item number 10, which is the director's report, and item number 5 we had just begun. So if I can move on now and go to public comment on item number 5. And the first speaker on item 5 is the appellant, Janice Lazaroff. Janice Lazaroff here? Okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. Marmon, she's asked to yield her time to me. Would that be permitted?
That is permitted. Appellants and applicants have a 5-minute total to present their case. All other public speakers have 1 minute, so you have 5 minutes to present your case, sir.
And to the extent I don't use my time now, would I be able to rebut?
No, we don't have a rebuttal. This is public speaking. We don't have rebuttal.
Even
time.
for the appellant?
Even for the appellant. Welcome. If you could state your name for the record, please.
My name is Victor Marmon. My office address is 1875 Century Park East, Los Angeles, California, Suite 1600. Council members, members of the staff, and members of the public, Mrs. Lazaroff appealed the grant of the variance by Mr. Tokunaga because that grant was patently illegal. But before I even begin there, I'd like to point out that this hearing was not properly noticed. There was no public, formal, written notice sent out to anybody, any affected property owner. I provided the council, the members here, with a copy, it's been logged in, of the notice for an August 30 notice for Council File 130804S1, which was the council file that considered the 50-foot variance on the property to the south, immediately to the south, 360 North Stone Canyon Road. That variance was 245 in June. It was heard in July by the council under 245. It was vetoed, the action of the APC was vetoed. The APC unanimously denied the variance. The zoning at Mr. Tokunaga denied the zoning at variance. It was appealed to the APC. They denied it. The council heard it. The council vetoed it in a very unusual situation. They vetoed it. And what did they do the next time around? Because they 245'd it again when, at the request of Mr. Koretz, when the APC unanimously again denied the variance because none of the findings could be made. On that second 245, this is the notice that was presented more than 10 days before the hearing before Plum and more than 10 days before the subsequent hearing before the council. No such notice was sent out this time. It is a violation of due process, and this hearing should not go forward, nor should the hearing before the city council. if you permit this hearing to go forward and you actually decide the matter, I don't need to tell you that you cannot grant a variance unless all of the 5 findings can be made supported by evidence. And the fact is that the applicant did not submit sufficient substantial evidence to support any of the 5 findings. I've submitted to you proposed findings as well as supplemental proposed findings. All of those findings demonstrate quite clearly that there is lack of substantial evidence, that the ZA erred and abused his discretion, and that there is ample evidence to support a denial of the variance in this case. It's really not even close. If you recommend that the variance be granted, I would like to just point out to you that that's what happened the last time. The city is in court on that variance grant, the 360 North Stone Canyon Road, the property immediately to the south. We are asking for attorney's fees in that one, and I just need to tell you, it's not meant in any improper way, but I need to tell you that if the variance goes forward, is granted, we will sue again. The city will be on the hook for the attorney's fees because this case is not even close. One thing you should know, I think, is that Councilmember Koretz, when he presented the 245 to you, said that the neighborhood association was not opposed to the variance. That was accurate. The Bel Air Association said, we are not opposed to the variance. We wish them to have time to resubmit. What Councilmember Koretz did not tell you, and what you've been provided, is an email from the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council, which has voted to oppose this variance. They do not believe that any of the 5 findings can be made. In short, we ask that you deny this, grant the appeal, deny the variance, overturn the ZA's decision, and end this matter here. When you recommend to the council that they do all those things. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
No, not now.
No, you know what? I need to make one other point. I'm sorry. Mr. Tokunaga, when he described the facts, talked about the hardship being from the way they measure the height, 5 feet out from the building, and the creek is nearby, therefore it's artificially lower. The applicant created that need by siting the house where it did. The applicant has the right to use the building envelope height. It could have gone up the hill, it could have terraced the structure, and it could have complied with the zoning ordinance. The applicant has admitted as such. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Now for the applicant's representative, Brandt. It's a long name, sir.
It's Brandt.
Oh, your law firm's name is at the end.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Brandt
Okay.
DeVerne from the law firm of Louis Brisbois. The
Okay.
name is a punishment for my parents.
All right, thank you.
25 years as a lawyer, I have to spell that. Every room I go into, every judge I appear in front of, and some that have known me my whole life still ask me how to spell it. So,
Okay.
why not a name I'd pick?
And if you could speak into the microphone, please.
Yes.
Yep.
I represent the applicant, and I appeared at the APC hearing. If you read the ZA, the devil's in the details. If you read the ZA's findings, and you read the draft findings that we submitted on September 23rd, and the draft findings that we emailed to you, to the Plum Committee yesterday, there's plenty of support for the grant of this variance. We meet all of the requirements, and I think if you compare the ZA's findings to the APC's findings, you'll see exactly what went on here. When the APC denied the variance, it focused on like 1 or 2 items, and it said, well, this has a large frontage, and there are other properties that have a large frontage. And it said, well, the creek's on this property, and there are other properties that have a creek. But what the APC didn't do, and what the ZA did, was look at the entire site and all of the detriments to this particular property. And when you look at them all, you have the basis for granting a variance. It's not just the long frontage, which may exist elsewhere. It's not just the creek, which may exist elsewhere. This creek is much wider on this property. It runs for the entire length of that frontage. The required setback is 55 feet at least from Stone Canyon. You have a gradient that slopes down towards the creek, and another gradient that slopes this way. It has a double gradient. When you look at the entirety of this site and all of the restrictions on this site, it's an adequate basis and can support a variance, and it will be supported in a court when we defend the first lawsuit, and if we get sued again, when we defend the second lawsuit. The often stated statement in the opposition's findings that the BHO requires terrace structures. There's no such requirement in the BHO. The terrace structures is a suggestion in the pamphlet for properties that are on a hill. This is on a relatively sloped, flat lot, and it's important to note the impacts of this particular property. The only part of this home that will be above the 36 feet is the part that's closest to the stream, which is closest to Stone Canyon, still 55 feet away from Stone Canyon. But at that point, the property is 14 feet below the street level. So from Stone Canyon, all you see of the highest part of the house is 33 feet. That's all you can see from Stone Canyon. As for other view impacts that surround the property, all the homes are not to the west. They're to the south, the north, and the east. And those homes are surrounded by vegetation and deep hills. There's pictures that I submitted to you that you have in front of you, and a picture's worth 1,000 words. And if you look at those photos, particularly photo number 1 and photo number 4 and photo number 10, you'll see that photo number 1 shows you the extreme distance that this property is from Stone Canyon and the trees that exist along Stone Canyon. And that's the only view impact from this entire property, and the only thing you see again is 33 feet. And picture number 4 shows you Miss Lazaroff's property behind the hill. And the only part of her property that even views this property is what we understand is a studio of some kind with no window. So you may ask yourself, what's all the opposition about? I'm not really sure myself, but I've been a land use lawyer a long time, and I've seen some opposition, and this is personal, and it needs to stop. There's adequate findings to support this variance. They're very detailed findings. The zoning administrator did an extremely detailed job. We also provided detailed findings. There's no impacts. This is a much less dense use than my client's entitled to as a matter of right. He could put 4 homes there. He's doing 2 homes, bigger homes, a much less dense use, which is a benefit to the neighborhood. He's helping to preserve that neighborhood. This is one of the last large lots to build there. So I appreciate your recommendation to approve this height variance. And if you have any questions, I'm here together with members of my team to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Marion Dodge. And 1 minute.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Marion Dodge, president of the Federation of Hillside and Canyon Associations, representing 42 resident and homeowner associations spanning the Santa Monica Mountains. The Federation urges you to uphold the decision of the West Area Planning Commission to approve the appeal of the zoning administrator's decision to grant a height variance and not assert jurisdiction under 245. A year ago, the city lost a lawsuit in a similar situation where council also asserted jurisdiction under 245 on variances requested for 1100 Stearns Drive. The judge ruled that the city council abused its discretion in granting 3 variances. The court held that substantial evidence did not support the granting of the variances. The court further noted that policy goals, quote, may not be used by the city council to dismantle the city's zoning scheme in a piecemeal fashion. Bellagio Road is very similar. The findings cannot be met. There's no hardship. It's dismantling the baseline Hillside ordinance, which you enthusiastically endorse. We urge you to uphold the West Area Commission's decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim McQuiston.
Jim, a question. You have my submissions. I do want to say, though, the standard of review comes up on all these cases. And the standard of review is something which is not what we're doing right now. We're supposed to be looking at what the zoning administrator did, whether he made a mistake in specifying what he made as a mistake. And instead, what we're doing is looking at the whole thing de novo. And that's not according to the state law.
Thank you. And now from Council District 5, Corret's office, Sean Bayless.
Sean Bayless, Planning and Land Use Director for Councilmember Paul Corretz. We've got a large crowd today. I'll try to be brief. Before us is an appeal to a zoning administrator's approval to a height variance of 50 feet. The scope is very narrow in that we are here to decide, did the zoning administrator simply err or abuse in his discretion in giving that approval for the height variance? Our office's position is he did not. This site, as it's been talked about, has several hurdles it has to climb. First and foremost, that comes up often, is the creek that runs down the entire length of the property. This creek is set back from the road. The city did something that it's not done to many property owners, and that is it mandates that that creek cannot be touched. The city mandated that as part of the subdivision of that property. Something else that was also done on top of that that's not been done to any other property that we're aware of, and as an additional buffer on top of that, that waterway easement, so that no development can happen an additional width beyond that creek. That's something that most other property owners don't have to deal with. The reality of that is it slices right through the property and creates a large undevelopable swath through the project. You combine that with the rear upslope nature of the property, and you start to feel real constraints. Another important part is we've discussed that when the city measures height, it gives the same height to the entire building, 5 feet out from the lowest point. 88% of this home is 36 feet, which is code required height. There isn't a portion of this home that suddenly juts higher. The roof is flat. It goes straight through. It's because a small corner, 12% of the house, gets bit by the 5 feet out to the lowest point with the additional height. So when you look through the zoning administrator's findings, they are complete. They have a full basis and rationale. And so our office does not believe that the zoning administrator erred or abused in his discretion. That has a firm basis for the decision, and that's our position.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. To our city attorney, have you had an opportunity to review some of the concerns about proper notice? Did you have that before you?
Well, I didn't know about it till now, so that's more of a factual concern. I don't know if it was given or not.
Okay. Thank you. And secondly, can we have our planning administrator up here, please? Our zoning administrator. In your findings, in your original findings, did you find that this applicant was any different from the neighbors in applying for this variance?
Well, one of the findings I have to make is that there are some special circumstances, and in this case, I did make those findings. In that, again, based on the creek being there, the relatively long frontage, that there were some special circumstances that warranted the variance, the height variance. Basically, what it does is it sort of limits the buildable area of the site by having the creek and the frontages there.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions?
88% of the house is within the 36-foot range, and it's only 12%, 10%. Varies only because there's a drop in
Right,
So
based
I-
on the design, only just 12 to, I want to say like 12 to 16% of the home exceeds the height limit, and that's just for that portion where, the slope comes down towards the creek.
Right. So it's not so much that the height goes up, more that the bottom deepens.
No, but what the applicant's architect has done is they want to keep the roof line at a certain height, and so in order to keep it at a certain height, without having to make the roof drop, they've kept the height straight, and so then you've got that portion that exceeds the height limit. And the appellant's argument is that, they can design it so that it does drop or that it terraces up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I'll move that the time for submitting those cards have been completed once we start. Excuse me, sir, you're out. Thank you, but I'm ruling that those cards have been submitted after we've started public speaking. We have closed public speaking, and I'll move on with this meeting. Thank you. Sir, you have out of order. Thank you. You have out of order, sir. Thank you very much. With that, I'll move that we find that the zoning administrator did not err and there was no abuse of discretion. We will move to overturn the APC determination and sustain the zoning administrator's determinations and findings. So is there a second on that? Second by Mr. Cedillo. So moved, so ordered. Thank you very much. So with that, let's go back to item number 3. Can we read that into the record, please? Items number 3 and 4 will be continued to the Plum Committee for March 18th. Can you read those 2 items into the record, please?
I'll ask. Hold on. Yes, Councilman. Items 3 and 4, I think there's a request for a continuance. 3 is a cultural heritage report, and 4 is an appeal relative to various entitlements for a project in CD 11.
Okay, thank you very much. Items number 6 and 7, those would be approved on consent. Can you read those into the record, please?
Sure. Item 6, Councilman, is a general plan amendment, a zone change, and a specific plan for Ponte Vista in CD 15. It's a 700-unit project, and the city attorney ordinance has been submitted for the record.
Thank you. So,
And 7,
do
Councilman.
we have cards on 6 and 7? Okay. We do have cards on 6, not on 7. Not on 7, so we'll move 7 on consent.
Okay, 7 was again a general plan amendment, a zone change. There's no proposed project, and it's in CD 10.
Okay. And on item number 6, these are all, okay. Okay, I got it. All right, so let's hear from the applicant on item number 6. And we would go with Stephen McGee and David Waddy.
David Waite.
Wait. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Councilman Huizar. David Waite. I'm going to be brief. We'll reserve time for questions or rebuttal as needed. We're pleased to be back before Plum this afternoon. We were here on December 17th. The committee had recommended approval of the project. We have been working with the city attorney now for the past approximately 10 weeks to finalize the ordinance for the specific plan that is before you again today, as well as the related documents. I'm pleased to report that the project has not changed in any material respect. We did make a few clarifying changes to the specific plan, but in sum and substance there are no material changes to the project that was presented to you on December 17th, nor to the project that was presented to the Planning Commission last fall. So with that, we're here to answer questions, and we look forward to moving forward to City Council. Steve McGee is also with me this morning from SFI Bridgeview and iStar Financial.
Great, thank you. And with that, let's go to Alfred Sadler. After Alfred is Luis Dominguez.
Good afternoon. My name is Al Sattler. I live in the city of Rancho Palos Verdes, about 1 block from where this project would be. And I have a couple of very specific questions. Number one, I notice it's calling for general plan amendment and have to ask what is the use of a general plan if you're going to change it for any project that comes along. And number two, if this project is not yet approved, is it appropriate for trees to be cut down on the site, including native willows that have been growing in the stream there for decades? Also, need to make note that this is in Alquist Priolo Special Study Area and close to several local hazards, including the Rancho LPG site, Naval Fuel Depot, and Phillips 66.
Thank you. Luis Dominguez, Janet Gunter. Luis Dominguez. No. Yeah. Luis Dominguez and Janet Gunter.
Janet's still out in the hall trying to get in.
Okay.
Just got in myself.
We'll get her in.
Just very quickly, I've been a long-time supporter of this project. I literally go back to the beginning. I've watched it be changed, become more and more friendly to the neighborhood. It is now, I think, a very viable plan that will be a major plus for San Pedro. It's going to beautify the area coming in. It's going to provide more park space. It's just a win-win for everybody. So we really hope that this will pass through and we'll actually get to see some shovels turning dirt soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Janet Gunter, Chuck Hart.
Good afternoon. I hope you've had a few minutes to look at the materials that I gave. Anyhow, in there you will see in the city planning department of the city of Los Angeles, this area is designated as an earthquake rupture zone. Not an earthquake fault zone, an earthquake rupture zone. That is where three earthquake faults meet at that juncture. This is a highly, highly vulnerable area, and you're putting 750 homes there. It's insanity. The EIR performed for this Ponte Vista site is highly deficient in a multitude of ways. The review has ignored the incredible and highly explosive risk exposure from the adjacent ultra-hazardous Rancho Butane gas storage facility, whose own consultant acknowledges that their gas storage represents the equivalent of 54 atomic bombs in stored energy. The Navy Fuel Depot and Phillips Refinery are also there. All of these dangerous storage sites fall within 1/2 to 1 mile of the proposed housing. I imagine my time is up. This is lunacy, and it is an illustration of city planning at its very worst. Unbelievable.
Thank you. Chuck Hart, Brenda Olson.
Chuck Hart, representing San Pedro Peninsula Homeowners United. San Pedro Peninsula Homeowners United represents more than 2,000 homeowners in the surrounding area of this new project. I'm also, as a board member of the San Pedro Homeowners Coalition, we represent 10 or 11 homeowners associations that are involved in the San Pedro area. We are concerned, our mission statement is to protect the property rights of homeowners. And fact-finding is a very important part of that mission statement. And upon review of the Ponte Vista EIR, we find many issues of concern. One of which Janet Gunter already brought up about the Palos Verdes fault. But your decisions have to be based on factual information. And the conclusions stated in the Ponte Vista EIR and the Planning Department's recommendation report of November 13th have misleading information. The EIR does not actually address the potential devastating impacts of a true worst-case scenario. But it's not your fault.
Sir, you're over your time, sir. If you could wrap it up, please.
You see my time is up?
Your time is up, yes.
I guess that's it. I can't tell you the truth.
Great.
Doesn't matter.
Thank you. Brenda Olson, Mary Jo Walker.
Good afternoon. It's a long-time resident.
Move the microphone down so we can hear you, please.
Thank you. As a long-time resident of San Pedro, I'm excited and looking forward to the new development, which will bring beautiful homes to local families, young couples, and seniors. It has been a long time coming to have that eyesore, the present eyesore, removed from that site. We will be very proud and happy to see the new development come to view.
Great, thank you. Mary Jo Walker? Are either of you Mary Jo Walker?
We actually tricked you. We all came together because we figured we were saying the same thing. I'm Heidi Brown, Jane Angel. We all signed in, though.
Okay, well, when I call you, you could come up. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Jo Walker?
Good afternoon.
And after Mary Jo Walker is Tony Ringer. Thank you, welcome.
San Pedro resident, have been on with this project since the very beginning. It's time to move on. We've been sitting and watching this go for over 10 years now. Families lived on this property before. If you're familiar with it, you know it was an old Navy-based housing. Lots of families lived there for many years until Terminal Island closed down. As a resident of San Pedro, we are looking forward to seeing this blighted area cleaned up and something done soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony Ringer, and then June Angel, one of those two.
My name is Tony Ringor, and I have been a resident of San Pedro for 54 years, and I also expect to die in San Pedro. And I've been a strong supporter of this project since its inception, even long before the new developers. So it is my honor for this committee to ask for your kind approval for this project. And thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. Jane Angel, Heidi Brown.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I don't know how to put it back.
Can we have somebody from our staff there to help? Or, oops.
I am so sorry. Hello? Oh,
Still works.
I think it might
Yeah,
work.
we're good.
Sorry,
Thank you.
I apologize. My name is Jane Angel. I'm a realtor with Coldwell Banker, and I'm here in support of the Ponte Vista project. This has been something that San Pedro has really needed for a very long time, and we feel that the price point of these properties will really enable a lot of families to be able to have new, beautiful homes, townhomes. There's just a lot of mixed development there as far as the different kinds of properties that it will offer, and it will be a tremendous asset to the community. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Heidi Brown.
Hi, I'm also representing Coldwell Banker today, and want to thank the council really from the bottom of our hearts for approving this project. The community was really listened to, and what they wanted and needed was really taken into consideration. I know that firsthand. They asked, they received, and it's the right time and place for this right project, and we're all very anxious to see it go forward and celebrate the completion in 2 years, 3 years. We'll be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Glenn Cornell, and finally Noel Weiss. Noel Weiss and Glenn Cornell. Glenn Cornell? Not here? Glenn Cornell?
Mr. LeGrande, how are you? Just two of you?
Mr. Weiss, you filled out 2 cards for this
I
item.
did. You know why? Because I thought we were in the other room, and I thought by mistake I had filled out the wrong number.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. The issue on Ponte Vista, I think, again, for the record, I want to just read into the record case Preservation Action Council versus City of San Jose, 141 Cal App 1336. I think there's an issue here to the extent that you have really not evaluated the R1 alternative thoroughly. What we're talking about is amending the general plan, the community plan. You're creating a track map here, and those kinds of considerations, I think, involve greater detailed determination than what was given here. 6 seconds, that's it? Okay. What are we down to? What are we down to? 1 minute now? Is that the deal?
Thank you, Mr. Weiss.
Mr. Weezer.
Mr. Weiss. Thank you, Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr.
So
Weezer.
that concludes. Yes, sir. Do we skip you? I'm sorry. Come on in. Yes, come on in, sir.
Thank you.
You state your name again in the microphone,
Glenn
please.
Cornell. I live in Rancho Palos Verdes, and I want to speak against the project, if I might. Yesterday, the entire City Council decided to hold up the dissemination of e-cigarettes on a standard that it might impair public health. I would hope this panel would consider using that same standard when it reviews this project, and particularly with the issue of water. I was at a meeting last Wednesday night in which our water distributor in Palos Verdes, Cal Water, indicated that they're probably going to ask us to cut back about 20% on water use on the peninsula of Palos Verdes. Now, there's probably about 15,000 homes in Palos Verdes. If they would cut back 10 to 15%, that would be something on the order of 1,500 homes worth of water. And with a stroke of a pen, you're being asked to basically use half of that water that we would save by allowing Ponte Vista to be built. And for what? You know, when...
It's your time, sir. But you can finish your sentence.
Well, thank you. And for what? Los Angelenos have a lot of complaints, traffic, etc., but one that you rarely hear them make is, gee, I wish we had more people.
Thank you.
You just don't hear it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, if we could have staff come on up, please. This project was previously heard and approved in this committee on December 17th, and at that time it was sent to the City Attorney's Office for final review as to form and legality. So there's the final version, correct? So we've already taken action on this and moved forward. Has there been any changes from that initial approval till now that we need to be made aware of?
Henry Chu of the Planning Department. With regards to the actual project description, there have been no changes. The Planning Department has worked with the city attorney with regards to the language of the specific plan to bring more assurances and certainty, as well as revising 3 mitigation measures to bring more certainty into that. So with that, there hasn't been any changes to the project itself.
Okay, great. Thank you. So with that, I'll move to approve this item and send it to full council, second by Mr. Cedillo. And do we know when this will be in council?
March 4th, sir.
March 4th, we'll have this item in council at that time. Thank you. So with that, let's go back to item number 1. And we have items number 1 and 2, and then we will get to 8 and 9. Item number 1?
Yes, item 1, Councilman, it's a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Ashin Haratunian to the North Valley APC.
Thank you, sir. And as you walk up to the microphone, I just want to thank you for your willingness to serve on this commission. And if you could just tell us a little bit about your background and your interest in serving on this commission.
Yes, good afternoon. I want to take this opportunity and thank you for considering me again for the appointment for North Valley Area Planning Commission. I served as a commissioner in the same commission through August of 2013 and was appointed by Honorable Mayor Villaraigosa. My background is I am the Chief Executive Officer of Primex Clinical Laboratories, which is located in San Fernando Valley. I also worked for City of Los Angeles in Department of Building and Safety from 1988 to 1994, and City of Beverly Hills from 1994 to 1996 in the capacity of plant checker. I'm very familiar with building and zoning codes of City of Los Angeles, and very familiar with the ordinances in the North Valley Commission area that I've served for 1 year.
Great, thank you. And you certainly have some experience that fits right in with the service on this commission. I have no further questions. Just want to thank you. Any questions for Mr. Cedillo?
Thank you very much.
So moved, seconded, and this item will be in council when?
March 4th, sir.
March 4th, we'll see you in council. Thank you very much. Item number 2.
Item 2, Councilman, is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Thomas Donovan to the West LA APC.
Welcome, Mr. Donovan, and your background and your interest in serving in this commission.
Thank you. First, I want to thank this committee for considering me today. I want to thank Mayor Garcetti for reappointing me, and I especially want to thank Council Member Mike Bonin for his strong support. I've been on the West LA APC since 2009, and since then I've probably presided over or been on that commission for over 120 matters. In West LA, we have very complicated matters. They're usually very well lawyered as well, as you've seen today. And before that, I started a neighborhood association back in the 80s. I was involved in land use then, and then I joined the neighborhood council, West LA Neighborhood Council, in 2007, ran their plum committee until I was appointed to the West LA APC.
Great, thank you. And your legal practice is in land use?
I do a little bit of land use in my legal practice as well, among other kinds of things. I'm one of the last remaining practitioners with a general practice.
There you go. Okay, thank you. Well, certainly this shows as well that our neighborhood council system is working, you having chaired the West LA Neighborhood Council Land Use Committee, and now you're moving up to do you've been doing the Area Planning Commission, so that's the idea, is to continue to support input from our local level into these decisions, and so thank you. And again, this appointment is very important to the point that you deal with day-to-day real quality of life issues that are important to your surrounding community, and so thank you for your previous attention to the number of cases that you have found before you, and we appreciate your service. Anything else? So moved and seconded, and we will see you March 4th on City Council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we could move now to items 7 and 8, and they will be read into the record. Just for the public's consumption, once we start an item in this committee, the submission for public comment cards has closed. So anybody who does want to speak, and we have to look at the number of cards we have, and we have quite a number. So after some testimony from our staff, we will talk about how we will handle the number of cards that we have received on both these items. It's quite a bit, so we got to manage in the interest of time and everybody's, make sure we get everybody's input as best we can. We will figure that out right now. But for now, I do want to invite up to the microphone the authors of one of the motions, Council Member Mike Bonin, who's here. And so if you want to, if you could come up here and speak. Wherever you would like, sir. You could come up here or up there, but wherever you like. Thanks.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thanks for having us here today. A little bit of deja vu testifying before Mr. Cedillo and Mr. Huizar twice in one afternoon. I'm becoming a professional at this, I guess. Thanks again for having us here today. There's two motions before you, and this one in particular I think is very simple. We're asking that there be a moratorium on all unconventional drilling and well stimulation, fracking activity here in Los Angeles until the drilling can be proven safe. Thank you. This really, I think, for me and for seems like many others, comes down to simple logic. That there's a way of drilling for oil and natural gas that many scientists are saying could cause earthquakes and could contaminate our drinking water. And all this motion says is there should be scientific proof that fracking and other unconventional drilling is safe before it is allowed to continue. The truth is that because largely of the lobbying efforts of the oil and gas industry, fracking and unconventional drilling are largely unregulated, and we don't know the true extent of the threats here in Los Angeles. Make no mistake, a lot of people say there's not a lot of fracking in Los Angeles. Fracking and other unconventional drilling is happening here in Los Angeles, and without the oversight or review to keep our neighborhoods safe. Even more scary, members, is that because we don't have the safeguards in place and because unconventional drilling is basically designed to make new use of existing and old wells, there is a potential for an enormous proliferation of fracking here in Los Angeles. As you can see, and as you just heard behind us, there's a lot of Angelenos who are very passionate about this issue. There is a petition signed by over 5,000 people on this issue. Mr. Koretz and I have brought that petition with you. In the interest of being environmentally friendly, it does not look particularly impressive because we reduced it to 25 names per page, 4 pages per side of paper, for 8 pages for a single piece of double-sided recycled paper. So this actually should look about 200 times bigger than it is, but we try, and there's only a single copy. So my main reason, Mr. Koretz is going to talk about a lot of the environmental impacts and the water impacts. My main reason for supporting this motion is because of earthquakes. I really want to prevent us from creating in real life a disaster movie. The risk and potential of earthquakes due to fracking and unconventional drilling is real and it is big. And it's particularly frightening to me that we would even ponder doing that in one of the most seismically active and frightening areas in the world. Just a few weeks ago, we had in council Dr. Lucy Jones, who was brought here by our colleague, Mr. Englander, one of the world's renowned experts in earthquakes. And she said herself that she believes that earthquakes can be triggered when wastewater is injected deep into the earth. She said unconventional drilling touched off a 5.6 magnitude earthquake in Oklahoma, a 5.0 in Colorado, and a 4.8 in Wyoming in recent years. This really isn't a matter of scientific debate anymore. Everywhere where there is fracking, there is swarms of earthquakes. We just saw a huge swarm of earthquakes spiking in Oklahoma after they started doing drilling there. They've had more in 2 months of this year, in the first 2 months of this year, than they have had over a period of years. Some folks will ask you to not move this forward, and they'll say that some of the safeguards approved by the state legislature are sufficient. We'd argue that Senate Bill 4 passed last year, while it does establish some reporting requirements for fracking in the state, it was really amended beyond recognition, and that most of the environmentalists who supported it initially wound up opposing it in the end, and it actually excludes from consideration and safety procedures many fracking projects that need environmental review. It's not even close to protecting us from fracking, and I'm particularly enthusiastic about legislation proposed by my state senator, Holly Mitchell, which would do a moratorium on fracking statewide. But until we do that, we need this. And we can't allow the safety of our neighborhoods that we represent to be jeopardized by dangerous drilling. I'm very thankful to be working with Mr. Koretz, with you, Mr. Weezar, with Mr. Parks, and with Mr. Wesson on these efforts. I know there's a couple motions before you today. I just urge, for simplicity's sake, that you approve them separately and not collectively, given that ours takes a slightly different tack than the others. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Bonin. And now, Mr. Koretz, if you could come up to the microphone, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, for hearing these items today. I appreciate your and Mr. Cedillo's leadership in looking into these important matters. I also appreciate my colleagues Mike Bonin, Herb Wesson, and Bernard Parks and their staff who have all worked very hard on this issue. The city of Los Angeles was built upon oil, literally. The city was built on and beside the largest urban oil field in the country. And if you look at old pictures of the city, which you'll occasionally see in various parts of City Hall, there are nothing but oil derricks everywhere. Over the years, there have been numerous efforts to ban drilling, to regulate it, to attempt to coexist with the oil fields here. But now we have oil companies attempting to squeeze their increasingly extreme and unconventional operations beside schools and hospitals and shopping malls and into neighborhoods across the city. And some operations do it better than others, and I certainly appreciate the ones who put the health and welfare of their neighbors first. But others are not doing such a good job. They're experimenting with chemicals and acids and high pressure in attempting to wring every last drop of oil from these old wells. We've seen grave concerns arising in neighborhoods from Cedars-Sinai area, where oil drilling is going on right across the street from the hospital, to the Esperanza neighborhood, which I believe is represented here today. It's time we take a close look at our zoning. We can't continue to automatically approve well-type changes when they have different environmental and health impacts like we've been doing. Having oil extraction right beside people's homes and schools is an inherently incompatible land use. People should not be exposed to the chemicals that rise up from deep underground, nor to hydrochloric acid or benzene or other toxic chemicals that companies are using. As the bloody noses and headaches from the Esperanza neighborhood and their neighbors will attest, it's not fair and it's not right and it shouldn't continue. Also, unfortunately, these high-pressure well completion techniques were somehow, thank you Dick Cheney, exempted from the Safe Drinking Water Act back in 2005. And that's crazy. These are exactly the type of things that the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Clean Water Act, and the Clean Air Act were designed to address. Until they're covered... Until they're covered by these acts, I'm not confident that my constituents and your constituents are safe. And the draft regulations on fracking in the state released by the governor are not strong enough. There should already be a statewide moratorium in place, at least until the state releases its studies on fracking in 2015. But there isn't that moratorium. Also, we need to be sure those studies are 100% independent and peer-reviewed, so that we're not simply just hearing from the fossil fuel industry and from people they're paying to tell us that fracking isn't as dangerous as we know it is. And also, as we well know, we've been in perhaps the worst drought in California history, at least in the short term. And each fracked well uses between 1 million and 10 million gallons of water. So if there ever was a time to put a moratorium on it, at least while we're in the middle of this drought, it's now. Those fossil fuels... Those fossil fuels aren't going anywhere. They've been there for millions of years. There's no urgency, but there is an urgency to make sure we have enough drinking water and we have enough water to keep our agriculture industry going. And so I think at least until the drought is over, even if you like fracking, there absolutely has to be a moratorium. Now finally, enforcement. The State Department of Divisions of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources, known as DOGGR, has already shown its incompetence with the wells at Esperanza. DOGGR knew that Alanco had ramped up its oil production by more than 500%, from 4,000 barrels to 21,000 barrels, and they knew people were getting sick. But it took Barbara Boxer and Karen Bass and our city attorney Mike Fewer to pressure Alanco to stop it. That doesn't give me great confidence in DOGGR. In fact, it gives me absolutely no confidence whatsoever. And those are the people we have to count on for enforcement. And of course, as Mike Bonin said, why is something that's causing earthquakes all over the country a good idea for us dangling on the edge of the San Andreas Fault? It's obviously the last place where we should be allowing this method. And we're not really breaking new ground, so to speak, in looking at this regulation. Somewhat shockingly, even the city of Dallas, the last place you would expect, has regulated fracking. So why is Los Angeles behind them? I think it's about time. Until fracking, acidizing, gravel packing, and whatever they think of next are all covered by federal acts intended to protect us all. Until we're out of the worst drought in our history, we have no business allowing these activities to occur among our friends and our neighbors. Most importantly, we must not allow them around our children who have no control of where they live. They have no control over where they go to school. The future they get is the one that we create for them today, and I urge your aye vote. Thank you very much.
Folks, thank you. It's the loudest I've heard this room. And we've also been joined by Councilmember Parks. Are you here, Ms. Yes. Councilmember Parks, please.
Thank you very much. And for those who applauded, you're maybe too early because I may say something you don't like in a minute. But just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. Boy, this is a tough crowd. No, I'm pleased to be here. And I think that certainly want to say that right off the bat, strongly support number 8 and 9 because I think it's something that this city has been confronted with over the last several years. We have gotten very minimal, if any, support from the state of California in addressing this issue. And they seem to be the authority as it relates to the type of process, the chemicals, keeping track of. And the reason I wrote my motion is that it would appear that we have a better position to deal with the zoning aspect of it, is that we should be requiring community processes. We should be in a situation in which when someone wants to do a oil drilling or a fracking procedure, that the city should be able to have a community process to evaluate it and ensure that nothing in our city is approved unless it is safe. It's important. It's important that we collectively as a city look at all aspects, particularly those that are within our purview. The issue that we supported with some reservation, the Pabley bill recently, because we found that every bill that came before Sacramento this year, if it had the word moratorium or any type of language for safety of the community, it was removed or it didn't go farther. And so, although there were those who were disappointed at the final bill that came forward, SB 4, we believe that it was something as opposed to nothing. And we were very pleased that the City Council took a position on both the EIR recommendations and other issues in order to show our strong support of this type of legislation. But I do think that as we did a little research and found out in New York, they fought the fracking issue over and over again and kept losing because they found the state jurisdiction kept preempting them. It wasn't until a small city in New York chose to take the zoning arena that they found that they had the ability to maintain their future in their hands. They did not have to rely on the state. They didn't have to rely on the review or the administration or the change administration. They merely had to look at their own city and their own rules, and they found that their future was bright if they did that. I think we should also be aware of not only the chemical issues that keep coming up and the things that people are concerned with, the cancer, but one of the areas I'm concerned with is the infrastructure deterioration. The number of houses that are showing signs of cracking, the settling of the earth, Those are real issues as it relates to people that live in and around the area of oil fields and fracking. It doesn't seem reasonable that you can replace the density of oil and through the shale and replace it with water and believe that you're going to maintain the same surface. I think also the chemicals. We have no idea in many instances what the chemicals are, and in fact, they're basically hide under the label of being under copyright or a corporate secrecy veil, to where you have no idea what they're putting in the ground. You have no idea what they're doing with the backflow when it comes out of the ground. And from what I understand, in order to do the fracking process, it may take 8 to 10 times the amount of water as you're dealing with on a regular drilling process. In this drought era that we're in, we could ill afford to have a finite resource such as water misused in that fashion. And so I'd ask that we get a vote of yes on both 8 and 9, and then we move them to council so that we can begin to take the process of our community and our long-term health in our hands and not rely or wait on the state for them to work through the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. What we will do, we will hear item number 8 first. We have a few public comment cards on those. Then we will go into item number 9. We have a few opposed cards. We have a few general comment cards. And for support, we have over 65 cards. And we're just to let you know up front, we will not get through all of them. All of these are 1 minute to speak, but I will try to get through as many support cards as possible after we hear the others in an allotment of 20 minutes. So we probably hear about 20 of those cards. And I will read people's name into the record for those who submitted a card after that. So that's kind of how we will proceed, just in case you're wondering where your card may be. So beginning with item number 8, Nick Ortiz, and then Craig Weber, and remember it's 1 minute. And if you wish to just say I support or don't support, that's even better. Some of the things after a while will be repetitive, so whatever, how you may wish. Nick Ortiz and then Craig Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Nick Ortiz, and I represent the Western States Petroleum Association, or WSPA. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak on hydraulic fracturing issues before the committee. As you stated, we are opposed to 8 and 9. And we believe hydraulic fracturing is a safe and proven oil field technology that has been in use for over 60 years and has never been associated with any confirmed case of groundwater contamination or other environmental harm. As discussed, Senate Bill 4 was signed last year, and it was sponsored by a member of the city's legislative delegation, and it will require a robust regulatory framework to govern hydraulic fracturing and other well stem technologies. So it's clear that the state of California has defined a robust path to develop regulations applicable to hydraulic fracturing, review environmental impacts, and ensure public disclosure of these activities. As Ventura County Council recently concluded, local proposals to prohibit hydraulic fracturing activities based on water supply or other issues are preempted by SB 4. Aside from the legalities, such a prohibition is clearly without merit, given that the actual water use of these activities is very low in comparison to others.
Thank you very much.
We believe any proposed land use regulations should wait until the completion of the SB 4 EIR process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Craig Weber and then Yvonne Watson.
Hello, good afternoon, committee members. Craig Weber. I just want to disclose really quickly, I do work here in the building, but I'm here as a stakeholder today. I happen to live about 800 feet from where evidently hydrofluoric acid is being stored and injected into the ground, and I don't think, like many of our lawmakers here today, that that's appropriate in a residential neighborhood. So I'm very encouraged by the comments that have been made today, and I want to encourage my lawmakers to back up this rhetoric with the resources that are necessary to write and adopt appropriate legislation on this topic. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yvonne Watson, Robert Cole.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Yvonne Watson. I'm with the Sierra Club. And I'm here to let you know that according to the oil and gas industry paper written multi-stage fracking in the Inglewood oil field, you need to include gravel packing as a hybrid form of fracking. This is how it's defined in that paper that was written for the petroleum industry. You also need to include acidation, because acidation can be used as a fracking form of well stimulation. All of these need to be included because the industry wants to focus on hydraulic fracturing and keep a very narrow definition. But fracking is actually any technique that fractures the underlying formation. So you need to be very careful. The oil and gas industry knows that these terms are being thrown around. They are trying to pull these kind of tricks with AQMD by redefining the terms even after AQMD passed their rule 1148.2. So please just be aware that when you are considering this item, I hope that you will consider that all forms of fracking need to be regulated, and not just the ones that the oil and gas industry wants you to regulate. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Cole, James Alamillo. James Alamillo.
Hi, my name is Robert Cole. I'm here in support of item number 8, strongly and vehemently. I am president of the Baldwin Hills Estates Homeowners Association. We have about 5,000 residents, about 70% of senior citizens. Many of them have respiratory issues. Some of the houses are falling off the land. There's no proper regulation for fracking right now. We are asking you to stop fracking our seniors, stop fracking our community. Let's frack the frackers. Let's implement something that will protect my children's children. I ask you to stand with me and 5,000 residents who cannot speak for themselves, and let's frack the frackers. Yes on 8, yes on 9.
James Alamillo. James Alamillo. Not here? And in the back? No? Okay. Alfred Sadlin. Alfred Sadlin. After Alfred Sadlin is Adriana Fernandez.
Good afternoon. I live in Rancho Palos Verdes. I call it Greater San Pedro, 1 block out of San Pedro. Thanks to Rule 1148.2, we have some disclosure of acidizing that has been happening in the Los Angeles area, and we know that there are several sites just along the Harbor Freeway between Sepulveda and Lomita that in particular have been acidized. Acidizing with hydrofluoric acid scares me a lot. I can only sympathize with the individual who's talking about having hundreds of gallons of hydrofluoric acid stirred in neighborhood community. Support 8 and 9.
Adriana Fernandez, Erin Steva.
Good afternoon. I'm here to speak on item number 9. I don't know if that was right on my card. I'm Adriana Fernandez of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, and we are opposed to this proposal because it will have far-reaching impacts, not just on companies, but on the 10,000 residents and property owners who are royalty holders. These residents, many of whom are elderly, rely on these annual royalty payments to make ends meet. This loss will also directly affect the city's budget through reduced sales and business tax. Reliable, affordable energy is essential for the health and growth of California businesses, and the well-regulated development of our resources has the potential to create jobs and generate much-needed revenue. Finally, we feel this proposal is unnecessary at this time. After this motion was introduced, Governor Brown signed SB 4 into law, as you've heard. SB 4 requires pre-activity notification, water quality testing, tracking of water supplies and disposal, and new state-sponsored studies, environmental reviews. Thank you for your time on this important issue.
Thank you. Erin Steva and Aura Vasquez.
And it's Erin Steva. So my name is Erin Steva with Community Health Councils. We have worked on behalf of residents impacted by the Baldwin Hills oil field, as well as other oil production sites across South Los Angeles. Every stage of the oil production process emits pollutants that can and do have significant health impacts. With oil production presenting clear risks to the public's health and welfare, the activity should be deemed an incompatible land use to occur far away from where people live, work, and play. Much of today's oil drilling is based on antiquated policy decisions made decades ago. This is unwise not only because the practices have changed, but also because the region has become much more densely populated. For this reason, we urge the city to use all the tools it has to protect the public's health and safety, including updating the land use policies, as other cities have, to recognize that oil production is an incompatible land use.
We all look alike. Thank you. Aldo Vasquez.
Hi.
And then Ruben Gonzalez.
Hi, everyone here. Councilmember Huizar and Councilmember Corres, thank you so much for taking the leadership on this. And I hope that the rest of the committee can really agree on passing this piece of legislation. So I'm here not only to tell you how important these practices are because they're harming us, but personally because this matters to me. I have spoken to many people in the past, other fellow Latinos that believe that this is wrong, and it's not only wrong, it's immoral. We spend about 5 to 10 million gallons of water that at the end here in LA will be costing all of us, not only our health, but our tax money. So I'm urging you to please support this and not frack California, and frack is really whack. So I really hope that all of you can agree and really do what's best for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ruben Gonzalez, and now we're beginning item number 9. I mean, we're taking both items together. They're similar, and we intend to move both items out of committee today, but just for the record, we are on number 9. Ruben Gonzalez and then Mark Glasser.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Councilman Cedillo, Councilman Koretz. My name is Ruben Gonzalez. I'm here on behalf of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. We feel that these proposals are premature, if at all needed. This city council supported SB 4. It put a process in place. It put a process in place to have DOGGR create rules that would regulate this kind of technology, this kind of drilling, until such time as a statewide EIR was complete, so that we could actually have facts in front of us and make decisions about how we're handling reaching this critical resource. This ordinance is an attempt, not even at a moratorium, it's really an attempt to back into a ban, which again is not what the city should be doing and not what the city should be moving forward on, given the fact that we need these natural resources. All putting a ban in place, and again I'm saying a ban because it's not really a moratorium will do, is mean dirtier energy from outside of the state, loss of jobs, loss of billions in revenue to government. So please, put this on a shelf, let SB 4 take effect, let it actually take effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Glasser, Hayward, Dan Fisk.
Hi, my name is Mark Glasser. Thank you for taking my comments. Rick Tilson, I just read an article. Rick Tilson is the CEO of ExxonMobil. He lives in Texas, has a $5 million property. He is the head of the fracturing department for ExxonMobil. He promotes it all over the country. He has now become part of a community group that is trying to prevent fracking in his neighborhood because it's going to reduce his property values and affect the health of the community. I think really that says it all. To me, fracking would not be an issue. We would not be considering fracking if it was not about money. The oil and gas industry get money from this, a lot of money, and they'll do anything to support it. Thank you.
Hayward, Dan Fisk. Nora Lehman, and after Laura is Nick Donovan.
Hello. After 15 minutes exposure on the job in Baldwin Hills at a school, I became dizzy. I was out in the yard. I brought the children inside, and later I found out that I was quite close to a fracking site. I support the moratorium as it was introduced. Los Angeles children do not deserve any more pollution. Please protect the health of the most vulnerable members of our society. Thank you.
Nick Donovan, Gary Glass.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Nick Donovan. I'm from the city of Whittier, and for 4 years I led the fight against the oil and gas industry's attempt to take over the Whittier Hills and drill for oil and gas and use, in that process, obviously, the process of fracking. For 4 years we fought on our own without the help of our city council because they were for the project, and we fought Texas Oil and we fought Santa Barbara Oil, and we won. For 4 years we stood alone without the LA County Board of Supervisors supporting us until the very end. We stood alone without a number of environmental agencies not supporting us, but it was a grassroots effort, and finally people did come to the table, and finally the Board of Supervisors voted 5-0 to oppose oil and gas drilling in the Whittier Hills and on any Prop 8 land throughout Los Angeles County. This is your opportunity to show moral courage, to show intellect, and to step forward and push us forward against the fight against the fossil fuel industry and protect the lives of our children for generations to come. Climate change is upon us, the world is burning up, and you need to stand up and be strong. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Glass and Brenno Norton.
Hello, my name is Gary Glass. I'm the president of the Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community. I live directly against the Baldwin Hills oil field. My community is being negatively impacted as we speak. Just on a 1 block stretch, we have 5 brain cancers. We just recently, 2 of my neighbors just passed with pancreatic cancer. The ground is moving. It is moving, and the homes are breaking apart. Matter of fact, the school that she mentioned about the children being affected is in my neighborhood. The ground is actually breaking that schoolyard in half. A couple of the bungalows there are actually going to have to be demolished because of the ground movement. You can't put pressure in ground and chemicals into the ground and not think that they aren't going to come up somewhere, and they are coming up in our community. This whole process of using our vital resource of water and sticking it in the ground and basically taking it out of the life cycle because all these chemicals are in there is absolutely absurd. I implore you to please put this ban on this moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. Brenno Norton and Rick Tuttle.
Hi there, Brennan Norton, community organizer with Food and Water Watch. Been working here with communities across Los Angeles for 2 years affected by this issue, getting very sick, having their homes move, passed this moratorium today, taking the rest of my time for the residents here who are directly affected. Thank you for coming out. Please pass the moratorium.
I'm good. Rick Tuttle, Kent Minot.
It's good to see you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Cedillo when he returns. And I want to congratulate Mr. Koretz for his leadership, Mr. Huizar for your leadership on 8 and on these matters, and also, of course, Chief Parks, Councilman Parks, and Councilman Mike Bonin. I'd like to turn and address my friends from the Valley Industry and Commerce Association and the Chamber, and for that matter, the Downtown City Association and the other groups, and ask them to quietly, I'm not asking for anything public, but quietly take counsel with their colleagues who are involved in properties, whether it be mortgaging, whether it be financing, whether it be insuring both commercial and residential properties. Because what we do know, and the industry agrees, setting aside the comments about 5.6 tremors that were made by the earthquake expert from Caltech, what we do know, the industry agrees. The industry agrees all over the country, 3.2 tremors. Constant tremors, not just once, but constantly. So please support 8 and support 9, and my congratulations and my prayers are with you. This is one of those moments. They come along every few years. On your watch, it's your time. My friends who are in public office right now, this is the big time right now. This is one of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tuttle, former controller for the City of Los Angeles. Ken Minalt, and then Kin G.
Hi, thanks for your time. I'm Kent Minot, Sierra Club's LA Beyond Coal campaign. The people in this room here are not just talking to you today, but we're also talking to each other and exchanging phone numbers and email addresses, and we really mean to see this moratorium pass. There's also a lot of young people in the room here who see their futures threatened by a fossil fuel industry that just doesn't care. And we're all here to say people are more important. People in LA need green jobs in energy efficiency and rooftop solar, two exponentially expanding industries that are already displacing significant amounts of climate disrupting emissions, and at the same time creating jobs that really pay. Let's put our political capital in a carbon-free future. Please pass the moratorium as written. Let's ban fracking in LA today. Thanks a lot.
Kin G and Don Garza.
Thank you, council members. My name is Dr. Kin G. I'm a neurologist from Culver City. I live in the part of Culver City that they call Culver Crest, where in 2006, PXP released hydrogen sulfide and methane that led to the voluntary evacuation of my street and the street next with asthma and migraine exacerbations, nausea, vomiting, and dizziness. In 2009, as a member of the Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community, we did a online survey, health and safety study, and we found that 30% of the residents had cancer diagnosed in their families. 26% were found to have breast cancer or prostate cancer or lymphoma or leukemia. 27% had asthma, and our national prevalence is only 10 to 12%, so it's double that. 37% had hypertension, and contrast it to our national prevalence of 29%. So folks living around the Baldwin Hills oil field have a higher incidence of cardiovascular disease. For that reason, I implore the council members to support 8 and 9. Thank you very much.
Don Garza, David Elgu.
I implore you, with everything that is in me, as a downtown LA resident, watching these high rises go up, all the work we've done in the past, and to watch these tremors constantly on my text messaging of 2.0 and above, just one right now, 3.8 from Montana. I'm from Texas. Last year when I started seeing 3.8, 3.9, 4.5, whatever, constantly in Oklahoma and Arkansas and all these different places, I was a little bit, what is this? To think that fracking is not going to cause an effect to crumble our buildings eventually, even if it's way over there, is ludicrous. It's absurd. I implore you, put a ban on fracking within this region, or we're going to lose this region to just shifting, the shifting dirt. It's going to go away. Thank you.
Thank you. David Elgu. David Elgu. David Elgu. None of those pronunciations worked. Lulin Folks. Lulin Folks. You could correct me, sir. And then after Mr. Folks is Naleli Kobo.
Yes, that's pronounced Lewin Folks. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Lewin Folks. I am a member of the Harbor Gateway North Neighborhood Council. I am equally just as a 35-year resident of Athens on the Hill. And we are having serious problems in our community with the fracking. Walls are crumbling, our sidewalks are pulling apart, they're cracking. My house is constantly cracking at night. You can hear it. There's movement. The ground is sinking. And when you do things like fracking and you're withdrawing oil from the ground or any kind of substance or element from the ground is going to sink. So you're taking away the...
Finish your thoughts, sir.
We ask that you vote on stop the fracking.
Thank you. Naleli, is it Lobo or Kobo? Kobo. And then after Ms. Kobo is Quasi Nikranma. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Nayeli Kobo. I am 13 years old. I attend 7th grade at St. Vincent School. I live in District 1 where Mr. Gil Cedillo represents us. I am here today to let you know that I live just in front of an oil well called Alenco. This location is surrounded by 9 schools, including mine, and one of them is for young adults with special needs and a residential area. The toxic emissions from the plant makes us sick. My friends and I have suffered from nosebleeds, headaches, stomach pain, asthma, and other health symptoms. Fortunately, it is closed temporarily, but we need to ensure they close operations permanently. Therefore, I am here to demand that you support the Los Angeles Fracking Moratorium. It is your responsibility to fight and defend the communities that elected you into your office. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kobo. Very well said. That was louder than the applause that Mr. Koretz got, by the way. Linda Escalante, after Mr.
Nkrumah.
Thank you.
My name is Quasi Nkrumah. I'm the co-chair of the Martin Luther King Coalition of Greater Los Angeles. Fracking is already a known entity. It's known to be an ecological disaster. It's known to be a health catastrophe. And it's also an economic bulldozer against the communities where it takes place. And on all those bases, it frankly should not be allowed to take place in any community in the United States, in our opinion. It is both an environmental issue and it's a social justice issue, particularly given the high concentration of communities of color, poor and working class communities where these operations take place. So, it is, in effect, an environmental justice issue. We're going to be out this Saturday with the Southern California Climate Action Coalition on the Great Climate March. We want to commend Mr. Koretz for stepping up as a public official. We want to urge all of you not to allow this criminal assault on our communities to take place on your watch. And we want to urge those at home who may be listening or hearing about this hearing, frankly, to take action in self-defense to recall any public official at any level that will allow this kind of criminal assault on their communities to take place. Thank you.
Linda Escalante, Monique Uriarte.
Dear committee members and Chair Mr. Huizar, on behalf of the Natural Resources Defense Council, I'm here in support of this motion. To talk about premature, I think we should talk about the early deaths from toxic exposure that fossil fuels submit us to, and I think despite the risk, fracking enjoys dangerous exemptions from critical environmental laws, including the Safe Drinking Act, the Clean Water Act, and the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. This motion will help protect Angelinas from the impacts of hydraulic fracking and other well stimulation activities. I urge you to vote in favor for this motion.
Thank you. Monique Uriarte, and then Panoply McMillan.
Good afternoon. My name is Monique Uriarte, and I live on 81 West 22nd Street, District 1, with Mr. Cedillo. I'm a member of People Not Pozos. People Not Pozos! This is a grassroots group supported by Esperanza Community Housing Corporation. We are the lucky ones to have as a neighbor an oil well. And we get free the emissions, the toxic emissions for them. And I'm here to let you know that our health is not on sale. We urge you to support the Los Angeles moratorium, fracking moratorium, We don't need these emissions in our community. People Naposo was walking on the census tract 2244 in a couple of days. We are able to get 477 signatures to close permanently the facility. And we can do that for the same candidate for District 1 to respond to our necessities and respect the health and human rights for the...
Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to give you a copy for this.
Penelope McMillan. Penelope McMillan. Oh. James Alamillo again. Not here again. Aura Walker, and then Maria Rivas.
Good afternoon, esteemed council members. My name is Ara Walker, and I started a Ban Fracking California petition that's almost at 40,000 signatures. I believe that there are unregulated wells in the Inglewood oil fields currently. I do not believe you can regulate fracking hundreds of feet underground. We have evidence from other states that oil wells that are encased crack. If there is a rainstorm, they can currently dump the fracking overflow into the Bayona Creek, which flows through our neighborhoods out to Marina Del Rey and out to the sea. I urge you to not combine the agenda of 9 with any other motion and leave it as is, and to pass the moratorium, and to protect the future of our families and future generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. And what is the name of your assistant there or partner?
This is my daughter.
And
India Walker.
And what school do you go to?
Le Lycée Français.
Which is
welcome.
on Overland and near the 10 freeway. And you have my work address, which is near the 405, and there's a frac tower there.
Thank you. I lived there when I went to law school at UCLA. I know that neighborhood well. Thank you. Maria Rivas. After Maria Rivas is Gabriela Garcia.
Sí, buenas tardes al comité. Mi nombre es María Rivas.
Un momento, por favor. ¿No habla inglés?
No.
No, yo le voy a trasladar,
Está bien.
traducir.
Gracias.
No sé cómo se dice. Traducir. Si dice poco, luego yo digo lo que va a decir. Okay?
Perfecto, está bien.
Can you give her
Gracias.
2 minutes, please? Thank you.
Bueno, mi nombre es María Rivas y estoy en representación de un grupo de mujeres de nuestra comunidad, de vecinas del Pozo de Petróleo, y quiero dirigirme a nuestro concejal Gil Cedillo, que nos apoye dándonos un sí en contra.
Un momento. Hi, my name is Maria Rivas. I'm here with the members of my community group and the neighbors where we have an oil well, and I'm here to urge Councilmember Gil Cedillo
para que nos apoye en el cierre del Pozo de Petróleo.
to support us in closing the oil well.
Confiamos en usted, señor Cedillo.
We have full confidence in you, Mr. Cedillo.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Gabriela Garcia, and then Laurie Grawl.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Gabriela Garcia. I'm with SAGE, Strategic Actions for a Just Economy. I'm also a member of People Not Pozos campaign. I live half a block around from the Alenco site in South LA, CD1, with my husband and my 2 children, ages 12 and 2. And this site has successfully, we've been successful in ceasing the operations temporarily. My family has experienced nosebleeds and respiratory issues and vomiting on days the oil wells fumes carried into our home. And so we live in communities that are already overburdened with poor air quality, Plus, here we are in the middle of a drought, and these extraction sites use a tremendous amount of our water. So our community needs strong land use regulatory tools to protect our families from these harmful and incompatible uses that have been grandfathered in. And we want a moratorium on fracking and other oil and natural gas extraction unless it is determined that they have no negative health and environmental impacts. Thank you.
Thank you. Ari Grawl, Orinio Opinaldo.
Good afternoon. My name is Lori Grawl. I live in Chatsworth. I must say I'm very disappointed that Mr. Englander is not here today. I would have really liked to have addressed him personally about my concerns and his constituents' concerns about fracking wells. I live near fracking wells in my community. I've been a 35-year business professional, real estate business professional, and property management on my own company for 35 years here in Los Angeles. I'm also a member of the Institute of Real Estate Management, which is a century-old global property management organization where I hold a master's designation, and I'm a published author for the Journal of Property Management. I've had a front row seat to what has become real estate devaluation across the country. If the health effects weren't enough to persuade you today, this is going to be fracking boom or housing bust. I urge you today to please vote for the moratorium. Our families, our livelihoods cannot survive this fracking boom. Thank you.
Thank you. Orinio Opinaldo, and then Toby Rodriguez.
Hello, I'm Marion Opinaldo with Sage Unidad Trust South LA and Esperanza Community Housing, working for a livable LA for all with equity across all areas that impact communities' health and well-being. Living midway between two whales, the first at Budlong and Jefferson, the second at Gramercy and Adams, affects children in schools. My granddaughter lived in Murrieta, and she didn't have any breathing problems. And now she is living with me, and she has asthma and sinus problems, and it's affecting her studies in school. I am here with others, calling for a moratorium on fracking and oil and natural gas drilling in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Toby Rodriguez, Richard Silvera. Okay, so Richard Silvera is going to be our last speaker. We have Toby.
Good afternoon, Council Member Cedillo. My name is Toby Rodriguez, and I'm a case manager at Esperanza Community Housing Corporation. It's a privilege to have the opportunity to be here before you and speak to you directly. And I say this because you have an amazing track record of helping out members of the community through your work with the SEIU, through your authoring of the California Dream Act. So it's evident that you really care about the community and you really care about the people that usually don't have a voice. And all this to say that we have confidence in you. And we need to stop fracking until it's proven 100% safe. The argument that we should hold off on this moratorium until we have, facts, reminds me a lot of the tobacco lobbyists back in the 50s and the 60s that said that, that stated that there were no conclusive research that linked tobacco smoke to cancer. That was ludicrous, obviously. We know that to not be the case today, and thousands of people have died as a result of tobacco smoke. So the science regarding fracking has already been talked about at length. We need your vote, and we urge you to vote yes for the LA City moratorium on fracking. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Silvera, our last speaker. Richard Silvera. Yes, sir. I didn't separate them.
I'm having trouble with the acoustics here.
The acoustics in here are not the greatest.
I'm a member of the Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Council, and last Thursday we voted to approve this moratorium or support this moratorium. I'm here as a private citizen, though, a resident, and I'm concerned about the waste of water, the potential pollution to groundwater, the pollution to the air, and the incidental release of methane into the atmosphere contributing to global warming. I urge you to support this moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, my apologies, our apologies, this committee's apologies for not getting through everyone in the interest of time, and also we will lose quorum should we not get through everyone, if we were to get through all the comments. So we wanted to do as much as possible, and I'll read everyone's name who did submit cards. These are people who support item number 9, Silva Silvera, Query Yang, Ethan Bulick, Jerry Daly, Yvonne Watson, Laura, Stephen Murray, John Charles Meyer, William Roberts, Rosemary Jenkins, Alexandra Negay, Stevenson, Davids, Toby Burke, Andrew Jones, Dolores Spears, Alicia Teekman, Donnelly Ward, Dency Nelson, Joe Galliani, Tricia Gossett, Gretchen Kander, Felicia Bunder, Steve Fox, Lance Simmons, Mark Lipman, Ashley Town, Solina Santini, Mike Ruiz, Ronnie Solman, Locker Foley, Jonathan Klein, Georgia Brewer, Sharon Cummins, Linda Piera Avila, Yana Garzia, Teresa Brady, Rosalie Preston, Dr. Tom Williams, Bruce Campbell, Anita Wetzel, Joy Morales, Elizabeth Garcia, David Deremis, Marcia Hansan, Adriana Fernandez, no, that was, okay, Arthur Patel, Daryl Gales, Helena Chavari, Jeanette Vosberg, Lou Watson, Bill Laurie, Alfred Sutton, and Aaron Steva. So just wanted to read those into the record and not feel like we also had for general comment on item number 9, Sandy Navarro, Diego Ernestia, Amy Turnbull, Tanya Ratcliffe, Saul Perez, Barrett McLaughlin, Finian McPeace. McLaughlin? Isn't that the name from that kid in that movie? Thank you very much. You got it. Thank you. So any questions or comments on this item? Mr. Cedillo?
Well, let me move the motions, because we have 2. I don't know if you want to handle them together. Thank the leadership of our colleagues, Bernie Parks, Mike Bonin, Paul Koretz. Also thank the controller, Rick Tuttle, who, as always, please no response, no applause. Controller Rick Tuttle, who's always thoughtful and awesome and responsible and thorough in his analysis. I want to thank my friend and colleague, Fran Pavley, for her leadership on these matters and all matters that concern the environment. Thank you, Don Garza, for your leadership and support in all matters that affect people who need government to advocate for them. So thank you. Those from Esperanza Housing, thank you. Gracias por su presencia, todos de Esperanza Housing. Yo estoy siempre contigo y para mí la política no es importa. Si ustedes conmigo o no, no importa. La política no es importante para mí. Yo voy a cumplir mi palabra, voy a trabajar siempre a servir a ustedes. Gracias por su presencia, su interés y su trabajo en este tema. You know, there was a question about the drought and its relationship to this matter. I think it's creates a sense of urgency, but not really relevancy, because the matters that are related to this should be addressed thoroughly, comprehensively. They should deal with the science as it is and what we know. There's other questions that remain. I'm concerned we have to figure out. Let me finish. And I also want to thank my staff, because my staff's worked very diligently on this. In fact, my staff working with the supervisor, and I think this is important. is my staff working with the supervisor has conducted and worked with Supervisor Molina's office to do the interviews of the residents, of the workers, of the children, to do the health care assessments, which is very important, particularly around closing down Alenco. And we took the conclusions very thoughtfully that came from the health department. The adverse impact is measured by metrics. And we see that even notably that after the shutdown that the health has improved. And so it's very important that we collaborate with all the agencies that have authority over this. The EPA, the AQMD, the DTSC, the RWQCB, the county, LA City's Fire Department, LA City's Planning, LA Building and Safety. We have to collaborate as a body of governance that's responsible to the public. And so we need to recognize that this requires tremendous collaboration because it's a very complex problem that was brought to us. And I think Parks demonstrated some of the challenges that confront us. I think it's important, though, at some point we've got to figure out who's going to be the lead agency, council member, so that we can figure out maybe there's some agglomeration of all these groups and maybe a freestanding entity that addresses this concern, because this concern is too imperative, too important for people to continue to approach this in their own little silo. Today we're acting as a silo. We're acting with indifference to SB4 in some respects, ignoring the legal relationships of the position that we took only a year ago. And so at some point we're going to have to think bigger than this, because it's a bigger problem than any one of those entities, and think how do we create some entity that deals with this specifically and solely. If not, we won't have the capacity that's required, nor will we fulfill the responsibilities that are upon us. So I'm happy to make the motions for both proposals and ask respectfully for an aye vote.
Great. No, thank you very much, Mr. Cedillo, and I will second your motion to move these items to full council, items number 8 and number 9. And I'd like to instruct the Planning Department, with the assistance of the City Attorney, to further review and develop regulatory controls over fracking in the City of Los Angeles. And finally, I want to be clear that the regulations in both these motions concern fracking and are not to be confused with the maintenance of general underground storage facilities that could support our, for example, our renewable energy projects that we are pursuing. But with that, I'd like to thank everyone involved, from our council member Koretz, who is still with us here today listening to the conversation, all the other council members who proposed these motions, and also to our council president, who has asked us to move expeditiously through our committees to get this to council as quickly as possible. And Mr. Cedillo, I appreciate your attention and thoughtfulness to this matter as well. So with that, we will move these items to full council, moved by Mr. Cedillo. I have seconded it, and there's nobody else to ask if there's an objection, so ordered. Thank you. Thank you. McLaughlin, I was thinking of McLovin from Superbad, the movie. Remember that? I just confused the two, but it's McLaughlin, not McLovin. All right. Some of you who saw that movie know what I'm talking about. Thank you. What's left on our agenda, sir?
Public comment, Councilor.
We have no public comment cards. Meeting is over.